Let me ask you a question. What if everything you think you know about your own mind is wrong? Right now, you probably feel like your thoughts, your memories, your entire sense of you, it all lives inside that 3-pound chunk of tissue between your ears. I mean, it just feels obvious, right? But what if it's not that simple? What if consciousness isn't actually generated by the brain at all? It sounds kind of crazy, I know, but it's a question that some very serious scientists and philosophers are starting to explore. So before we get too far out there, let's start with what we all learn in school. This is the theory that has totally dominated science for centuries, the idea that the brain itself creates consciousness. It's the familiar, standard issue scientific answer. And look, there are some really, really good reasons for this. Neuroscience has given us these incredible maps of the brain, showing us that specific regions are tied to specific abilities. You damage the visual cortex, your sight can go. You injure the hippocampus, and boom, you might not be able to make new memories. So the connection feels rock solid, doesn't it? Brain activity equals conscious experience. Case closed. Or is it? Well, not so fast. Because hiding just beneath the surface of that neat and tidy answer is a massive gaping hole. This is what philosophers call the hard problem, and it's a huge wrench in the works for that simple explanation. Here's what it boils down to. We can map every single neuron firing. We can track every electrical impulse in the brain with unbelievable precision. But with all our amazing technology, we still can't answer one single fundamental question. Why does any of it feel like anything? Why does all that physical stuff produce the rich, subjective inner world that you're experiencing right now? Think about it like this. Your laptop or your phone, it also runs on electrical signals. It processes a mind-boggling amount of information. But it doesn't feel happiness, it doesn't get sad, it doesn't experience the vibrant color red or wonder what it's all for. So what's the secret ingredient? Why does the brain's information processing come with this rich inner experience while a computer's doesn't? This giant gap in our understanding, well, it has a name. The hard problem of consciousness. It's the puzzle of how and why physical things, neurons, chemicals, electricity, should suddenly give rise to the totally non-physical feeling of being alive. And this very hard problem has pushed some scientists to ask a really wild question. What if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the brain isn't a factory that builds consciousness, but more like an antenna that receives it? Now, this is a truly radical idea. The best way to get your head around this is the radio analogy. A radio doesn't create the music you hear, right? It just receives broadcast signals that are already floating all around us, and it converts them into sound. Now, if you take a hammer and smash that radio, the music stops playing, of course. But the broadcast signal itself, it's still out there, flying through the air. You just broke the receiver. So what if the brain works the same way? In this theory, the brain isn't the source. It's an incredibly complex biological interface, a kind of tuner that filters and picks up on a consciousness that might already exist as a fundamental part of the universe. I know, this probably sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but the idea that consciousness could be a fundamental part of the universe, well, it actually connects to some very serious scientific and philosophical theories. One of these is called panpsychism. It's the wild idea that consciousness isn't some special thing that only happens in brains. Instead, it might be a fundamental and universal property of reality itself, just like gravity or time. Now, that doesn't mean your desk is thinking deep thoughts. It just suggests that a very, very basic primitive form of experience might be woven into the fabric of everything. In this view, our brains don't invent consciousness, they just organize it into the complex thoughts we have. Then you've got another fascinating idea called integrated information theory, or IIT. This one suggests that consciousness isn't about what something is made of, but about how information inside a system is all interconnected. It's less about a specific part of the brain and way more about the pattern of how information is flowing. So consciousness might not be in a place at all. It might just emerge from certain kinds of complex patterns. Okay. These are some truly mind-bending concepts, so let's take a deep breath and bring this conversation back down to earth. It's absolutely crucial that we ground this in what science can actually observe and measure, right here, right now. And here is the simple, hard truth. Despite how compelling and frankly how cool these alternative theories are, there is currently zero scientific evidence that consciousness exists outside of a functioning brain. It's a powerful philosophical idea for sure, but as of today, it's not a proven scientific fact. As of right now, all the data points in one direction. Every single measurable sign of awareness that we know of, from seeing the color blue to solving a math problem, is directly tied to observable activity inside the brain. When that brain activity stops, consciousness, as we know it, just seems to vanish. Which, leaves us right back where we started, staring into one of the deepest mysteries of existence. Is our brain a creator, building our entire reality from scratch, or is it something more like a doorway, opening up to something that's already there? But here's the most incredible part of this whole thing. You don't need a billion-dollar lab or a fancy brain scanner to study this phenomenon. You are a walking, talking consciousness laboratory. You're experiencing it right now. That little voice in your head, the feeling of the world around you, that is the mystery. It's the closest thing to us, and yet it's the thing we understand the least. And so we're left with this final, profound question. Is the brain a biological machine, a creator that builds your entire world from a flurry of electrical signals? Or is it something more like a doorway, a gateway that connects our physical selves to a much deeper aspect of the universe we haven't even begun to understand? The answer, whatever it is, could literally change everything we think we know about reality itself.